That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, guys, I know that this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, and because of that, I am not going to be sharing screenshots of these draft boards. I'm not going to be attaching names to this. I'm not even going to be telling you what leagues these are in. But I thought it would be a pretty decent idea to go through and ask y'all on Twitter, ask y'all on Discord, and to look at the Flock Patreon Dynasty Leagues and just go through and look at some real life recent Dynasty rookie drafts that are not mock drafts. These are not just fake drafts where someone can do anything. No, these are real money leagues where you have a buy-in, you have something on the line. So your decisions, you better really think about them. You better really believe them. And this is where you have to put your mark on these players. So we are going to be looking at these boards, and I'm going to be picking out 5 or 6 draft picks from across all leagues where I'm going, you know what? I really don't understand what someone was thinking here. I really don't know why they decided to go this route. I think that it's clearly the wrong decision, and let's talk about it. But of course, I need to give a massive shout out to everybody in Premier Gang, everybody coming out to the videos at the very beginning that subscribed to the channel, has that notification bell hit. I mean, we are getting like 50, 60 people out to these premieres every single video, which is absolutely crazy. And of course, if you come to a premiere and you have any Dynasty question that you need asked, just please ask it in the chat and I'll do my best to get you an answer. But anyway, let's dive into this and let's bring up our first draft pick that I want to talk about. And this is Kyle Pitts over Najee Harris. Okay, so here with Kyle Pitts, I understand. I mean, I am on record of saying that Kyle Pitts is the best tight end prospect that we have ever seen. Not only does Kyle Pitts get more NFL draft capital than we have ever seen in the modern era. I mean, absolutely ridiculous seeing the Atlanta Falcons spend that 4th overall selection on Kyle Pitts. But if there was ever going to be a tight end worthy of this selection, it is definitely going to be Kyle Pitts, in that at the tight end position, with these prospects coming into the NFL, very rarely do you get all 3 traits at an elite level. The 3 traits that you look for in those tight ends are A, receiving game capability, B, athleticism, and more importantly, elite athleticism. And this is something that we talked about on our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide that's coming out on Patreon very soon now. But if you go through and you look historically what has made a top 10 tight end in fantasy consistently in that range, surprisingly, it looks like the tight end position is the most correlated with athleticism across all positions. I mean, at running back, you would think that it's maybe one of the most important things, but at the tight end spot, I mean, everything is about your speed. Everything is about how fast you can get down the field, which is surprising. I don't understand why that's the case. I would love for someone with more football knowledge than I do to go either in the live chat right now if you're watching this as a premiere, or down in the comment section if you're watching this as a video later on, and let me know what I am missing here and why you have those top end tight ends in fantasy just pretty much all having an elite athletic profile. I mean, compared to the wide receivers, compared to the running backs, you just don't see anything like that. And lastly, the size. And Kyle Pitts is a monstrous human. I mean, he has a basketball frame. He has the longest wingspan that we have ever seen in the NFL at the tight end position. And he has a longer wingspan than Calvin Johnson from a few years ago. So we can sit here and we can go box by box and we can go, okay, Kyle Pitts is elite across the board. This is one of the best tight end prospects that we have ever seen. And at the same time, we can say that it's a very bad decision to draft that player over Najee Harris, because we have seen time and time again, it doesn't matter if you go back 10 years, it doesn't matter if you go back 20 years and look at trends with what you see in a greater sense of what happens at the tight end position and the running back position, their rookie seasons and their value afterwards. Now, at the running back position, unless your name's Rashad Penny, unless your name is Sony Michel, I mean, if you get that first round draft capital, you are so insulated in pretty much never losing value through the first 12 months. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens. And if you put anything decent on tape, if you do anything just halfway good in your rookie season, you're actually going to see that boost in value. It's one of the safest assets you could ever invest into. And yes, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, these running backs with that first round draft capital that checks every single box to be a 3-down running back, they're going to be expensive. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about drafting Najee Harris at the 101 in a one quarterback league. But traditionally, if you're looking at that 3-down profile at the running back position and how running backs make an impact right away in year one in the NFL, I mean, it's always going to be a better bet, even if Najee Harris isn't the greatest running back prospect in the world. Even if we can safely say that if he was in the draft class last year, he would probably be behind guys like Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We can say that, and at the same time, you can have the dynasty experience and you can understand what happens with these positional values after year one and go, Najee Harris in a non-tight end premium format is a significantly better bet than Kyle Pitts, and you need to be making that draft pick every single time. Okay, so now let's talk about some positional value going over to the QB and wide receiver spot. And let's talk about this draft pick that I saw of Trevor Lawrence over Devontae Smith in a one quarterback format. Now, I understand, guys, we can sit here and we can say that Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterback prospects that we have seen in the past decade. You could safely say that. And at the same time, you can go, hey, to draft Trevor Lawrence as early as the 106 in a one quarterback format, that is a very bad draft pick. Now, we can put the little caveat in here that if you're playing in a 14, 16-man league, yes, even in a one quarterback format, the QB spot's going to be at a little bit more of a demand based on just more teams not having the ability to go get that backup QB. So yes, if this was just say a 16-man one quarterback format, you could see the bump up with Trevor Lawrence. And also if this was a 6-point passing touchdown league, you could see the bump up with Lawrence at the same time. But even then, you can't be drafting him over Devontae Smith. And Smith himself, yes, he has a lot of red flags. I mean, he's going to an offense where the passing volume isn't going to be sky high. I mean, y'all know that I love Jalen Hurts for fantasy. Jalen Hurts was someone we were drafting in every single one of our super flex rookie drafts last offseason. Yet, we can safely say that the reason we love him for fantasy is because he is going to have that elite rushing production where you are not going to have that passing volume. It's going to be very similar to something that you see with Lamar Jackson. I think that Jalen Hurts is a lot closer to Lamar Jackson throwing the football than he is a Kyler Murray. And because of that, it's going to be hard to see Devontae Smith have access to a top 10 wide receiver season in the first few years of his NFL career. But based on the fact that you just simply do not have the demand at the one quarterback league level for the quarterback position, Trevor Lawrence over Devontae Smith is going to be a losing bet every single time because let's go best case scenario for both of these players. Let's go, okay, if they both hit their 90th percentile outcome, say Trevor Lawrence is indeed one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Say he immediately comes on the scene and he is a Russell Wilson type talent. Okay, so if he's a Russell Wilson type talent, what is he then worth in a one quarterback format? If he does jump up to being a Dak Prescott, if he can jump up to being pretty much anybody outside of Patrick Mahomes, because you're never going to be able to project someone to be an outlier in that scenario, just say Trevor Lawrence becomes the second best quarterback in fantasy, which without his elite rushing upside, I doubt that's going to happen, but still, say it does. What is he then valued in Dynasty? In a one quarterback league, he's worth a first and a second round rookie pick. I mean, you're not paying multiple first-round picks for Patrick Mahomes in a one-quarterback league, even with Mahomes being the best quarterback in fantasy. And you look at the flip side of this with Devontae Smith, and you go, okay, if Devontae Smith does come out, and if he does just hit with Jalen Hurts, say Jalen Hurts all of a sudden is like a Kyler Murray, and he can provide that passing volume in the offense, and Devontae Smith shows that he can translate that elite collegiate production over to the NFL, and he can get over the fact that he has a 166-pound frame. Devontae Smith, all of a sudden, is someone that you could look like, hey, he jumps up in the range of just say Justin Jefferson, and I know that's crazy to say, but it's possible. It's something that you could see, and we are talking about best case scenario here. So best case scenario, you could see Devontae Smith 12 months from now being a player that's worth close to 3 first-round picks in a one-quarterback format, where with Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the upside just simply isn't nearly that high. Yes, you can make the argument that Lawrence has a much higher floor than Devontae Smith, but the last thing you should ever be doing in a one-quarterback league is playing for the quarterback floor. I mean, there is no value in doing that whatsoever. Okay, so now let's go over to the tier 2 of players we are going to be looking at, and let's talk about someone drafting Michael Carter Jr. over Elijah Moore. Now, no, you're pretty much never going to find this happen in a Flock Patreon Dynasty League, and that's because everybody in those Flock Patreon Dynasty Leagues can understand that, hey, if we are talking about an undersized running back, a running back that doesn't have an elite athletic profile, someone that goes on day 3 of the NFL draft, I mean, what is the upside with that player? Just like we got done talking with Trevor Lawrence, just like we got done talking with Devonta Smith. If we are looking for the 90th percentile outcome with Michael Carter Jr., his best case scenario is he wins the feature down role for the New York Jets. And the New York Jets is a team that should be on the rise. Just say Zach Wilson comes in. Zach Wilson is indeed a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, which is not likely, but we're going best case scenario here. And Michael Carter Jr. does win that starting job. All of a sudden, you're looking at Michael Carter Jr. going, okay, so he's an undersized running back. He is not too athletic. Yes, he's a good pass catching running back, so that is something that can be a plus for him. But you add all this together and you go, okay, best case scenario, Michael Carter Jr., is he a high-end running back too? I legitimately think that that is the ceiling with Michael Carter Jr. That's why I sent out a tweet a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, if Michael Carter Jr. finishes as a top 12 running back in 2021, I will live stream me eating my shoe, because it simply doesn't happen. You do not have running backs with this small of a frame that does not possess elite athleticism that gets drafted on day 3. That profile never hits. That profile never has an elite ceiling. Whereas on the other hand, you're looking at an Elijah Moore in this same offense and you're going, hey, okay, so Elijah Moore, A, gets the NFL draft capital. He's selected within the top 40 picks of the NFL draft. B, he is going into a situation where Jamison Crowder most likely going to be cut. As soon as they have the potential to maximize the cap savings by cutting Jamison Crowder, that is something that they are going to be doing. Elijah Moore immediately going to play that slot role with Zach Wilson. And we saw from Elijah Moore at Ole Miss that this is a player that's going to be great. I mean, you do have the concerns that he's a little undersized, and that's why he is going to be mainly limited to the slot in the NFL. But beyond that, he has a great athletic profile. But more importantly, he has an insane production profile. This is something that we have said so many times before, and that Elijah Moore, yes, his true freshman season, I mean, the production wasn't insane, but he was playing in an offense with A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Dawson Knox. You're not going to be expecting any 18-year-old. I don't care if they're Jamar Chase. I don't care if they're prime Amari Cooper. I mean, those players aren't going to be coming in and immediately producing in that scenario. But with Elijah Moore, as soon as they leave Ole Miss, then he gets vaulted up to being the wide receiver 1 on that team. Then he posts over 800 receiving yards, and the second best receiver on that team can't even crack 200. And Elijah Moore is 19 years old when he does this. Then he comes out in his true junior season and posts over 150 receiving yards a game in the SEC. So Elijah Moore is just a completely different talent than a Michael Carter Jr. Elijah Moore does have that potential to be a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy, and I think that he has a higher ceiling than Michael Carter Jr. A higher floor than Michael Carter Jr. at the same time. So yeah, please never consider drafting Michael Carter Jr., even if the situation looks better than Elijah Moore's. Okay, so now let's go over and talk about some more situations, and let's go talk about Cornell Powell and Nico Collins. So I saw Powell get drafted over Nico Collins, and I mean, this is absurd in my opinion. We've already talked about Nico Collins and why he's one of my favorite late round draft picks. I mean, A, you do have the upside that if Deshaun Watson does indeed play in 2021, all of a sudden Nico Collins has a path to be either the best or second best receiving option in a Deshaun Watson-led offense. And even if this is one of the worst teams in the NFL, I mean, Deshaun Watson is one of the best quarterbacks, so you should be expecting those targets to come with a natural level of efficiency where Nico Collins could be very productive, and he does have an intriguing prospect profile coming into the NFL. The Houston Texans trade up to draft him in the 3rd round. So there are so many things that you're liking with that profile. Where Cornell Powell, yes, he lands in a great situation in Kansas City with this team losing Sammy Watkins. But we go through and you go, okay, so he was a late day 3 pick. I mean, he pretty much fell into the 6th round. I mean, he was a 5th round compensatory pick at the very end. And then you're looking at him as a 5th year breakout. Now, If you haven't been playing Dynasty in a while, I mean, I just want to fill y'all in that players that do not break out in their freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior seasons, and they have to stay a 5th year until finally breaking out, they are never hits at the NFL level. I don't care if they're coming out of Clemson. I don't care what their wide receiver depth chart is looking like. You never, and I repeat, never see 5th year breakouts have an impact at the NFL level. So he is just a prospect. While yes, the situation can be decent, he is not someone you should be investing in at all. Okay, so now let's bring up our last players we are going to be talking about. Let's talk about us seeing Tlaw Smith get drafted over Javonte Williams in multiple Flock Patreon Dynasty leagues. And here I think that this was maybe on me because before the NFL draft, we did rank Tlaw Smith over Javonte Williams. And that was because I wasn't buying the Javonte Williams draft profile hype. I wasn't buying that he was going to be a top 40 NFL draft pick. But as soon as you see that you're wrong, you have to make the adjustment. You can't sit here, and y'all know that I am the first person to admit when I'm wrong all the time. And as soon as you see the Denver Broncos trade up at the very top of the 2nd round to go get Javonte Williams, you go, okay, Javonte, yes, he's not going to the best situation with the Denver offense, not looking like it's going to be great. But we've already talked about Tlaw Smith not having that same situation. And we have already discussed what happens with these rookie running backs and their value. Very, very rarely, I mean, very rarely do you see running backs lose a significant amount of value after their rookie season if they had a profile that we liked coming into the NFL draft, if they get that NFL draft capital, because that's going to indicate that they are getting opportunities very early on. So the safest investment that you can make, not only from a floor standpoint, not only going, hey, you know what, I don't want to lose value with this draft pick, but also trying to take a shot at some upside, is going to be investing into a running back that can profile to be a 3-down guy that gets the requisite draft capital to have that opportunity in year 1. That's what Javonte Williams has. So even if I like the player, Tlaw Smith, a little bit more than Williams coming into the NFL draft, you can't look at what happened in the draft and still have that take. Javonte Williams has to clearly jump up, in my opinion, and the only wide receiver that you could take ahead of Javonte in this year's draft is Jamar Chase. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. Of course, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow. Thank you so much for everyone supporting the show on Patreon. And Dominic, Jim, Carl, Jesse, Tyler, Eric, Colby, Cameron, Mike, and Marcus, thank you guys.